Marita Noon, she has a new book out, Energy Freedom, The Role of Energy in Your Life and How Environmentalists Control Its Use. She has a website, Energy Makes America Great. Welcome, Marita Noon.
Thank you. It's always great to be with you.
You know,
did you get the copy of the book I left you when I was in town?
Of course, and one of my favorite authors is Ben Stein. Absolutely favorite things Ben talks about. And you quote Ben Stein with "Long may it cool."
Isn't that the funniest piece?
He said, "Let us now praise famous men. Let us praise Willis Haviland Carrier, the main inventor of the greatest gift to mankind since the Constitution, namely air conditioning." You know, people do not think about the energy in their walls, the air conditioning going on, the fact that they get into something and drive 500 miles in one day. They just don't think about how energy makes their life great, do they?
No, they don't, and that's definitely one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because as long as we don't realize how important energy is, as long as we just take energy for granted, it is easy for the public to be sold a bill of goods about how easy it is to replace this energy, because it is not going to be easy, and frankly, there's no need to replace it, because we have an abundance of energy in this country, and we need to be aware of it so that we vote wisely and protect it.
Well, I was having a little argument with somebody the other day here on the air, and it involved this notion that when we talk about density of energy, a lot of people don't understand that is the tool that helps you understand what all this means. And an example is in New Mexico, in the area around Albuquerque, PNM needs about 2,200 megawatts per day, right?
Sounds good.
And
I don't have PNM's numbers at the top of my head, but sounds good.
And they just got a new solar project, and it's a 2-megawatt project, and they're going, wow, they're high-fiving and they're just jumping up and down. 2 megawatts when they use 2,200 a day. Yeah,
so that's like,
you know, and you go, well, that solar project is a rounding error. It is a few people not drying their clothes one day comparative to what the needs of the society is.
Yes, and then you consider what that solar plant cost to put in that industrial solar park, and it just isn't there.
Well, even I say one nice thing about ethanol, and only one, because I have a car that doesn't like ethanol, and I don't drive it anymore because you can't get gasoline that isn't ethanol. And my 1998 Grand Marquis does not like ethanol, and it ran fine until the last station succumbed to the influences of ethanol, and it doesn't run very good now. I have had it parked for 9 months now because it just doesn't like ethanol. The only great thing about ethanol, Marita Noon, is the fact that if you're completely out of fuel, it gives you a few more options, right?
That is correct. It does do that. It does. And we've seen that with ethanol. We've seen it with wind. We've seen it with solar. Yes, the technology is there. We are able to produce alternative fuels.
Just a little extra. If we're just a little short having, now that's not saying if you've got solar and wind and it's costing 50 cents a kilowatt hour, or 47 cents, excuse me, let me be correct, 47 cents a kilowatt hour versus 8 for what you normally get. If you don't mind paying 6 times as much for your power, which actually when you are completely out of power, Marita Noon, you'll pay whatever it takes, right?
Exactly. And that's why this stuff should come on the market on a natural free market sense. When and if, which we're looking at 100, 150 years from now, we really do run out of the traditional fuels. By the time we ever do run out, the price will have gradually gone up as the supply decreases to the point that what we'll be paying will be comparable to the alternatives. But to falsely raise the prices now, you just have to question, why does somebody want to do that?
Well, they can't make it work any other way. Now, in New Mexico, in some of the growing regions, they take a flyer at lettuce. I don't know if you know enough about growing, but especially
I did speak last Friday. You know, I was in town there, Las Cruces, where you're based, although I know you're all over the state. But I was in Las Cruces last week speaking for the Women in Farm Economics.
Exactly.
And they went on a lettuce field trip.
Yes,
Friday afternoon.
And
I didn't go, though.
Lettuce is a very interesting crop because 4 out of 5 times you plow it down because about 3/4 of the cost of lettuce is picking it. And if you don't get a snowstorm one place or a drought somewhere else, the lettuce they grow in New Mexico is not worth picking. They just plow it right back in. But the one time every 4 or 5 years, they make like $1 million off that crop because it's just at the right time when everybody else's crop isn't presenting and America has an appetite for lettuce, and so we are Johnny on the spot for that moment. And what we charge for lettuce pays well for them to grow it 3 or 4 other times and get nothing, plow it down rather than pick it. Now, I don't think we have that same methodology with wind and solar energy, though. Waiting for that moment when we're just about to start a brownout, and they say to the people, okay, but I want $1 a kilowatt hour, you know, and make a deal like that, which actually that'd be a screaming deal rather than go to a brownout, wouldn't it?
Well, when you're without, yes. I just talked to a friend yesterday who lives in Massachusetts, and she said they were without electricity for 5 days following Hurricane Irene. Ooh. And yeah, she said, however, we happen to have a whole house generator, so they were able to generate their own electricity. So
good for her.
But it was awkward being without our computers and so forth.
Oh.
And you know, on that note, I assume you saw a week or so ago, Zuccotti Park, Occupy Wall Street, that they had gone in and raided the complex and removed all of the gasoline-powered generators that they had in there because they were a fire hazard. So obviously my point is, you know, they realize they can't be without energy, which is why they brought to their little encampment their own generators with them.
Absolutely. And, of course, my aunt and uncle, in the winter of 97 in Roswell, they had about 3 feet of snow just hit suddenly. It knocked the power out. In my aunt and uncle's house, which was the poor house in the neighborhood, it had been built earlier than all these rich houses, but they had wall heaters, the kind that are in that have natural, actually had propane and wall heaters, and those functioned just fine. So they had candles and wall heaters, and they were just fine. Everything functioned. They had enough water stored and everything. The rest of the neighborhood was sitting there at 15 degrees, 10 degrees, and so my aunt and uncle had a lot of friends who wanted to come over and have a cup of coffee and sit in the warm for just a little bit, and that's when you really do notice that energy does make America great and the absence thereof. Your new book, Energy Freedom, The Role of Energy in Your Life and How Environment is Control Its Use. Where do people get that book?
Well, the easiest is Amazon.com, and just go there and order it.
All right, and it is an A to Z look at a lot of energy issues. How long did it take you to write that?
About 6 weeks.
No
wow.
way.
Well,
no
this is her
way.
20th book, so I'm not surprised.
6 weeks, really?
That's right.
I wrote it last December. I planned to write the whole thing in December, but there were a couple news items came up that I had to stop and address, and so finished it in the middle of January, and it's finally out just now in October. It takes a while to actually get these things out.
Wow. A very, very interesting book with a lot of stuff. It's not one of those you can just pile right through. It's one of those you need to read and think. We're going to have more with Marita Noon. She has EnergyMakesAmericaGreat.com. You can check out things that she has written. She's also a columnist on townhall.com. We'll have more with Marita Noon when we come back. We are News New Mexico. It is 18 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. We're talking with Marita Noon. You can go to the website, EnergyMakesAmericaGreat.com. She has a new book out, Marita Noon has Energy Freedom, the role of energy in your life and how environmentalists control its use. You have a section about green in which you talk about the spotted owl, DDT, and ethanol. Give us a little rundown on that.
Sure, that section is what I call the green schemes, and the goal of that section is to help people to be aware when the next green scheme comes along that is what it is. It's a green scheme. It's not necessarily a real solution. Those three things, spotted owl, DDT, and ethanol, we could throw in, there's many others we could have thrown in there, of course, including global warming, but I felt there was enough books written on global warming. I didn't need to reinvent the wheel. But the idea is that each one of those things are something that the environmental movement, professional environmentalism, has used to reshape the way America lives, but for no benefit. In fact, in many cases, for great detriment, especially to industry and the economy.
So Marita, now I used to, in Japan, I lived in a little village in Japan, and because we had a real problem with mosquitoes, about 6 in the morning there'd be a vehicle that comes to peppering the air with DDT. And as kids, we'd ride through the mist. You know, we thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And plus, normally all the bugs left us alone for a week or so after we did that. And I'm not really strange. I mean, you know, Yeah, I was just thinking now that explains a lot. I thought so. But here's the thing. There's a professor at Texas A&M who eats a spoonful of DDT every semester to show his kids it is not harmful, and has been doing it since the early 70s when Rachel Carson's book in 1964, what was it, The Spring?
Silent Spring.
The Silent Spring.
It's really what started a lot of the environmental movement.
And what people don't realize is when they started using DDT in the 1940s, they went from having 5 million people die from malaria they had it down to a couple thousand in a couple of those years. And then we got rid of the one thing that killed all the mosquitoes, which was DDT, and we're back up to millions of deaths every year, right?
Yes, and we're struggling, you know, particularly in Africa and the countries where the mosquitoes are prolific. They are struggling with malaria. It's a major, major killer, and there's a solution for it,
which is
DDT.
Use DDT. Now, here's the thing: is that Rachel Carson actually killed more people than Hitler ever thought of.
Yeah, because of from malaria.
Yep.
Coming back, and she's still heralded as a saint in many circles. The research was found to be falsified, much like the global warming research was found to be falsified. And so that section is to help people to be aware so that they're not as gullible in the future.
Marita, I wanted to ask you a question about some New Mexico news here. The USDA, it seems, has given a $54 million loan to a group called Sapphire Energy, which will be building an algae fuel project. And I wanted your opinion on what you thought of it.
Well, I do know that you can generate fuel from algae. It is possible. It has not yet been done on a large scale or commercial scale, which I assume is what their goal is to accomplish there. But the big question comes down to, why are we doing this? And this is, again, it's kind of a green scheme. We've been sold the bill of goods.
So it's about density and those kinds of things. Marita, Noon, we've run out of time. We appreciate.
We always do.
Thanks, Marita.
We appreciate everything you do. Be sure to get Energy Freedom, the role of energy in your life and how environmentalists control its use. We will have Marita Noon next week back at this time. We are News New Mexico. It's 28 minutes past the hour.